Hello viewers, and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in on this what will be episode 8 of this Suzuki GSX 750 ES 1983 reconstruction. If you watched the last video, you'll see that we finally got the carbies pretty much sorted out and actually installed, which that was a bit of a task, but managed to get that done. So what are we going to do in this episode? We want to work on the fuel tank, get that sorted. So we need to put the fuel gauge in there, and also the fuel tap. Then once that's on, we can maybe try and kick this thing over. We might do a bit of work on the front calipers while we're waiting for any parts, and it's probably about time we did the service components on this. So oil filter, spark plugs, get them in so that when we're ready to kick it over, it's ready to go. So anyway, enough talking, let's get on with the video. Right, so when I put this all back together after, having to remove the battery and move the battery box and all that's to get the carbies in, then that original electrical fault was back. So with a lot of searching through the circuit diagrams, which are pretty blurred, so it's very hard to tell what goes where and what colour the wires are, etc. I finally tracked it down to where the original problem was, which is this connector that goes into the bottom of the fuse box. And then I found the wire coming from the indicators, or the lights, had this bit of tape around it, so I thought that's unusual, so I pulled on that, and then this is snapped here. I think somebody has put one of those little electrical connectors on there to run another wire off there, and that's chewed through the wire. So anyway, that's good to find now rather than out on the road somewhere. So I just need to solder that back up and insulate it, and then that should get rid of all of the electrical problems. Cool. Right, well, one of the other things that I have to do is make an air filter. On a previous episode, I described how they're a bit hard to find. There are some on eBay from overseas, but quite expensive, and I thought, well, it's not really that complicated. So I've actually purchased some of this air filter material from eBay, and really all it has to do is just go around this. So I think I'm just going to cut a strip, wrap that around probably twice, put some cable ties on it, and as far as I'm concerned, that will do as an air filter. Right, so there is my air filter. I think that should be fine, so that can go back in the airbox. Right, the next major thing I need to do is sort out this fuel tank. As you can see, it's been painted and looks very good. The inside of it, I had a look in there. The inside looks really good, so no rust. The gas cap fits. Originally, I thought there wasn't a rubber seal there, but there is. So yeah, that goes on and comes off, so that's good. So we need to put in the fuel level sensor, and the various components of that, and then obviously the fuel tap, which they've taped over here for spray painting. So I have one of those that I ordered for my previous restoration that sort of half works, so I'll see if I can get that working. And yeah, we've got all the rubber bits for the side covers and where it mounts to the frame, etc. So yeah, let's get on with that. Right, well that's in and seems to be working. It was a bit of a pain. Turns out I had to basically take apart the sliding resistor inside there that drives the fuel meter, because it was a fair amount of corrosion, so things weren't actually making good connections. So a bit of microsurgery to pull it all apart, give it a really good clean and put it back together, and seems to be good at the moment. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got that hose that connects on here somewhere, or I can get one. Next is the fuel tap. So this fuel tap is one that I bought when I was restoring my GS750, which I didn't end up using because it doesn't work properly. Basically these taps have an outlet, which is this one here, and then also a vacuum activator. So with it on prime, fuel will come out of here. With it on or reserve, fuel shouldn't come out of there until you get a vacuum on here, which opens a little valve inside. So that part of it worked, but the problem was when you remove the vacuum, it's supposed to seal back up again to stop the flow, whereas this one, sure enough, when you applied a vacuum, it started to flow, but when you released the vacuum, it just kept coming. So that's not good. I've pulled this apart a few times, given it a bit of a clean, got rid of a few burrs. Also, there's a little spring behind here which closes the valve, so I've sort of stretched that a little bit. It's a bit hard to tell whether it's working or not until you put it in a tank, so that's the next thing I'm going to do is clean this area here and then install this, put some fuel in the tank and see whether the tap works correctly. Right, so I've tried about 4 times to get this thing to work. I've pulled it apart multiple times, tried to figure out what's going on. I've changed the little O-ring inside, that didn't work. I've strengthened the spring, that didn't work. So you put it on and no fuel comes out, you suck on the vacuum line and the fuel starts flowing, but then when you release the vacuum, it just keeps coming out, so that's never going to work properly. So the original Suzuki ones are not available anymore, so I've bitten the bullet and bought another one off eBay. Looks exactly the same, but anyway, that's all I can think of doing at the moment, and once that arrives, we'll try that one. Right, so quick change of plan. Turns out the originals are available. I went back onto the Mikon Suzuki site and I misread the parts list there. The version for the Model D is unavailable, but they do have some for Model E, which is what this is. So I've ordered one of those. But just, yeah, a word of warning, these aftermarket Chinese ones just don't work, so don't even bother, even though they're cheap. They just don't work properly, so chuck them in the bin. So we'll wait until that arrives and then we'll see if we can get this started. All right, so we need to do a basic service on this thing. So oil filter and spark plugs. So let's get them done. That oil looks pretty good, but we will change it anyway. Sure why that's so tight. Doesn't need to be. Snip that off. Double washer. And last one. There we go. Done. Right, there's the 4 new spark plugs in. All the gaps checked, put in, tightened up, and plugged in. So that bit's ready to go. All right, so sump plug is back in. Filled up the new oil filter with oil and put that in, and put that cover back on, tightened up. And then I've filled up the oil to a reasonable level. Obviously I'll recheck that once the bike gets started. So that's oil filter and plugs. So that's ready to go, really. Right, we've got 2 lots of front calipers. So what I'm going to do is pull these apart, pick the best 2 and take them apart, sandblast them, paint them and put the new kits through. A bit loud at the moment because it's raining very heavily. Right, well, while it may not look like it, these are the best 2 calipers, left and right. So I managed to get the pistons out with a bit of trouble. Just taking them all to pieces, giving them a wash down with petrol, and I will maybe tomorrow give them a good clean, sandblast, and then think about putting them, or spray paint them, and then think about putting them back together. All right, there's the 2 front calipers and the hose splitter, sandblasted and repainted and cleaned. So let's start putting them back together. Right, well, these pistons are back in with the new rubbers. There was a few tricks with these calipers. Getting the old pistons out for a start. Quite often you can just push compressed air into the hole and it will they will pop out. These ones were pretty well jammed in, so what it do was cut away the dust seal, and then basically what you can do is get some open-ended spanners and then use them with that little ridge that's around the top of the piston for the dust seal to slowly prise them away, and then as it gets further up, put maybe a couple of nuts or something. I use some 8mm nuts to go up a bit further, and then you can slowly prise it out. And then putting them back together is interesting as well. I mean, getting the seal for the piston in is not a problem, although you do have to make sure that the ridge inside there where the seal sits is completely clean, otherwise it'll be too tight. Getting the dust seal on is interesting. The problem with that is that if the piston is in, you can't get the bottom edge of the seal into this little slot on the case. But if you put that in beforehand, then you can't get the piston in. So I discovered a bit of a trick off YouTube. You can probably search for that yourself if you need be. So look for caliper dust seal installation. So basically, you put this with the piston out. You put the dust seal onto the piston, and then slide it right down to the bottom, with just a little bit hanging off the bottom, and then you position that into the case of the caliper and get the bottom seal in. Then once that's in, you can simply just push the piston in, and then eventually it'll pop onto the top here. You have to make sure that that's well lubricated, so I basically just covered it in engine oil. But yeah, they're both on now, so let's put them back together and get them on the bike. Right, so those calipers are now mounted on there after restoration, and new pads, waiting for hoses and fluid, etc. Right, so this arrived today, which is long-awaited fuel tap or fuel petcock, whichever way you call it. So I will certainly test that before I put the tank on, but this is a genuine Suzuki one, so it should work fine. Right, so I've fitted the new fuel tap, tested it, and yes, it works correctly. Thank you, Mr. Suzuki. I've mounted the tank temporarily, put it onto prime, so the carby should be full of fuel. No leaks that I can see. So this is literally the first time I see if this thing kicks over. There's no exhaust system on it, so if it does kick over, it's going to be bloody loud. So anyway, let's see what happens. Something's happening. Bit of choke maybe. Oh, compressor's kicked in. Well, that's good news. That took a while for things to sort of get a bit of compression and then suck some fuel in and whatever, but yeah, it's actually doing something and sounds like it's running on all four. I guess the next thing is to put the exhaust system on so that it doesn't sound like a truck. But yeah, great success. Right, well, that's it for episode 8 of this reconstruction. So obviously made some huge progress with getting the tank sorted, putting the tank on and actually starting the engine. So that's good news. Seems like it's running on all four. We've just got to sort out the exhaust system. And then we're sort of on the final stretch, so there's not too much more to do. A bit more on the brakes, reupholster the seat, put some mirrors on it. Yeah, getting towards the end. So once again, thanks for watching. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up down below or subscribe. Tell your friends, ask some questions, whatever. So Looking forward to getting this thing actually rideable. So we'll see you in episode 9, I suppose. Thanks again for watching, and see you later.